By the Terra Novan cycle of 1678, the Southern Republic and Mekong Dominion had entered into an agreement to form the Allied Southern Territories, which would be under the direct leadership and control of the Republic. Through the next 4 cycles, the newly formed AST moved to annex their neighbors, the Eastern Sun Emirates and the Humanist Alliance. And by TN 1681, the entirety of the southern hemisphere of Terra Nova was under the grip of the Allied Southern Territories. In the north, the 3 city-state leagues, the United Mercantile Federation, the Northern Lights Confederacy, and the Western Frontier Protectorate, became alarmed at the sudden appearance of a very large, potentially hostile power that could threaten their collective sovereignty. Quiet murmurings of a similar alliance of the Northern Leagues to counter the South's new power began to occur, but the divisions between the 3 northern blocs were too deep-rooted in a history of conflict between each other, so no progress was ever made. This sentiment would change rather quickly after the Merchants' War of TN 1686 to 1688, where the UMF fought the AST militia over an area of resource-rich land in the West Ridge region of Terra Nova's equatorial desert Badlands. After 2 cycles of fighting, however, the forces of the Mercantile Federation were resoundingly beaten by the superior numbers and tenacity of the Allied Southern Territories. The Merchants' War scared the UMF leadership into a new line of thinking that abandoned the prejudices of old, due to necessity. So, the United Mercantile Federation began to petition the other leagues, the Northern Lights Confederacy and Western Frontier Protectorate, to join together to form an alliance of their own. And by TN 1692, this idea became reality with the creation of the Confederation of Northern City-States. Unlike the AST, which was just a false pretense of a cooperative effort under the grip of the Southern Republic, the CNCS very much was a partnership of roughly equals. However, as the Northern Lights Confederacy had the strongest position upon entering the alliance, they thus came to hold a majority of the power among the CNCS. Both hemispheres were now fully united against the other, and whatever territorial ambitions the AST may have had upon the North would have to be put on hold due to this new development. Although occasional border skirmishes in the equatorial wastelands between the two would come up with a certain level of regularity. This state of low-level hostility between the 2 power blocks would continue until TN 1723, when both AST and CNCS forces converged upon an old colonial medical ship, the St. Vincent, which had crash-landed in the desert Badlands long ago. During the intense fighting, a biological disease held in storage on board the ship was accidentally released and had proceeded to infect the combatants. Later dubbed the St. Vincent Plague, what was most insidious about this disease was that it did not initially kill those who were infected, namely those who fought at the crashed medical ship. Instead, they became unwitting plague carriers who took the disease back to their homes in the north and south. And once there, the plague of St. Vincent chose then to become a full-on epidemic. The plague spread like wildfire, and it seemed to take particular delight in targeting the children of Terra Nova, as within 1 season, 5% of the entire population of children on Terra Nova were dead, with an equal number seriously impaired for life. Fortunately, a cure was found before St. Vincent's plague could proceed further and severely jeopardize the future of the colony world. When it was over, both the peoples of the North and the South were screaming for blood against the other. It did not matter that both sides were equally culpable in the release of the plague. All either side cared about was to exact their vengeance upon the other for the loved ones they lost. St. Vincent's War, Terra Nova's first global conflict, had begun. Over the next few cycles, the world had plunged into a brutal and bloody war of vengeance. Tens of thousands died on both sides, as everyone involved were solely focused on making each other suffer in the most tortuous way possible. Civilian targets were just as viable as military ones. Nothing was spared. The war only ended when the people's bloodlust in both the AST and CNCS began to wane, and simple exhaustion was replaced in its stead. By this point, the economies of every league in both the North and the South were on the verge of collapse. The Mekong Dominion were the first league to withdraw from the war, which were then quickly followed by the Humanist Alliance and the Eastern Sun Emirates in much the same way dominoes fall one after another. But the Southern Republic continued to fight on. But it wasn't until a final attack from the CNCS on their territory that convinced the Republicans that they, too, were on their last legs. Peace with the North was the only way to end the war now. When St. Vincent's War officially ended in a negotiated peace treaty with all parties involved, both the Confederated Northern city-states and the Allied Southern territories fully sealed their borders against each other as they rebuilt their shattered power bases. St. Vincent's War can perhaps be considered the foundation for what we know as the modern Terra Novan political order of the 1900s. Both the North and the South would continue their hostility for each other, but the lessons learned and costs paid from this conflict would force each alliance to be reluctant in engaging in another all-out war for the time being. Instead, the CNCS and AST began building up their militaries for a future conflict, which everyone believed was certain to come. But as history would prove later on, these attitudes and the actions that stemmed from them may very well have saved Terra Nova from a far worse fate that no one on the planet could have predicted.